This is Kathy from Gadgets Top 321, and in today's video I'm just doing a follow-up on a few different items. I've got my Rouge Granat that I'm keeping an eye on in my Jinhao X750. It had given me problems in another nib, and I'm testing this one to see if it performs any better. And I've got a couple items that I use with my traveler's notebook that I'm going to take a look at in just a minute. But first, I'm going to check out Rouge Granat. The original pen and nib that I put it in, it wrote wonderfully for quite a while and then just dried up one day and wouldn't hardly write. I switched it out with an identical nib, a Nemesign 0.6 stub, but this second nib wrote substantially wetter than the original. So I'm just wanting to see if writing with an extremely wet nib will correct the problem of ink drying up and clogging up the nib. Okay, since the last time we looked at it, it's gotten quite a bit crustier. Let's see. It's still writing though. It actually started out better than it did the last time. All right, that gives me quite a bit of hope, because really, with another ink that I had problems with, and I just keep harping on the same thing, but when I used Colorverse Golden Record, when I used it in my Kaweco Perkeo, it just stopped it up and eventually would not write at all. But when I used it in another pen that had an extremely wet nib, it got the nib all crusty and everything, and I might have a hard start every now and then, but it still wrote. So maybe that's going to be the case with this nib, ink and nib pairing, because originally this nib wrote super wet. It just poured the ink on the paper. Now the ink kind of crusting up the nib actually makes it write a little bit better. It's kind of stifled some of the flow of the ink. No. We'll keep an eye on that. I like it. It works so far. The nib might look like it's getting rusty, but that's not too bad. I can work with it. Now, another thing I wanted to look at was my pencil and eraser that I'm using in my little Passport Traveler's notebook. And I guess I should go ahead and mention that in a previous video I was trying to decide what notebook to go with, what new notebook, and I eventually did decide to go with this green one, the green Apica. Even though it does hang out a little bit, my pen that I'm using is green. I'm using green ink, so I've got kind of a green theme going on here. I don't really mind it. That's okay. I don't mind it. Now, I've had the little birdie switch for a while, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But I recently got this little thin eraser, and it had horrible, the reviews for it were horrible on jet pens. But I've been pretty satisfied with it. If you expect this to perform like a big block eraser, to be able to erase big chunks of text, yeah, it's not going to perform the same. It's really thin and flimsy. It's going to flop back and forth. But if you think of this as let me see, it's like the drafting pencil version of a block eraser, then you know, if you go into it with those type of expectations, I think you'll be happy. I kind of like it because I can put it in my notebook here, and you know, by friction it stays. Let me see. And I guess I could also, you could stick it in a folder. I like it. Now it's wrapped up in plastic. It had one of those little tabs like a pack of gum does that you just, you know, pull it around. And I just left the little plastic bit so that when I'm done, I can just put that on there. It'll keep the eraser from getting dirty and put it in there. And I'm going to show you how well it erases in just a second. Let me see, will this stay open? Let me. Okay, and my little Pilot Birdie switch. I've had this for a while, but I just noticed this recently that it's pretty efficient with its lead usage. I got down to the last of my piece of lead, and look how efficient that is. That's all that was left. Well, you know, I, I was impressed. I don't know. If you're not a pencil person, you may think that's kind of weird, but. And now I can start the new piece of lead. This is a really good quality pencil with metal construction. I'm just really happy with this. And the reason I had to get that little bar eraser is because, like I've mentioned before, this one has a little ballpoint pen on the back. And it writes, you know, it writes decently smooth for a ballpoint pen. Let me see, let me pull it out. Maybe I can pull this out. You know, it's not a very large ink refill, but for a ballpoint pen, and no more that I use it, I would, you know, this is nice to have on hand if you need to sign something, sign a check, because I haven't tested it. I don't think this fountain pen ink is waterproof, but let's do a quick little eraser test. It's going to be that time of year where I'm up in my study and it gets hot. And it's starting to get hot up here. I'm probably going to try moving my filming location to our basement, but our basement is like a dungeon. I don't know. I would have to do something with lighting. Okay. I don't really use this pencil for writing notes. For writing notes, I use my fountain pen, but I use this pencil for underlining in my little New Testament that I carry with this, and I just want to have something in case I underline something that I didn't intend to, or I make a ugly underline, I can erase it. And so I'm not erasing a lot at one time. Yeah, it looks fine to me. Erases nice and clean. Doesn't smear. So overall, I think everything is working well. My Rouge Granat issue, I think I have sorted out. Just have to use it in a really wet nib, so I can use it in this stub nib, or I should have gotten it out. The wooden fountain pen that my sister got me, that's the one that, you know, worked well with this ink. And I'm going to try some other pens. I let me see. I've used this ink in like my Pilot stub, which is kind of the Pilot Prera stub. It was a really dry writer, and I didn't notice any problems with it. It didn't look that great. You know, these type of inks typically look better in really wet writing pens, but well, if you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.